Law of One, Book 5, Fragment 55, Session 105, October 19th, 1983. Jim. After a good deal of searching, we finally did find a house north of Atlanta to which we were about to move in November of 1983. We decided to query Ra about the metaphysical cleansing needs of this new dwelling before moving there, and that was the purpose of this session. As Jim was giving Carla her pre-session massage, he noted reddened welts, symmetrical in nature, on both sides of her back. They were similar to the welting which had covered her body when her kidneys failed at age 13 from glomerulonephritis. Apparently, if Carla had chosen to meet difficulties in completing our lease agreement with our landlord by allowing a feeling of separation from him to occur, or had allowed this same feeling of separation to grow for Don as he hemmed and hawed about what house to choose in Atlanta, that allowing of separation of self from other self could have been energized by our negative friend until her self was separated from her physical vehicle, and her incarnation would have been at its end. She had to deal with our landlord, who had numerous requirements for our leaving that he felt justified in making, and with Don's mental condition, which was beginning to show further signs of the long-term stress to mind and body that commuting and worrying about his job had brought about. Strikes and bankruptcy were continually threatening Eastern Airlines, and, though he knew it would be easier to get to work from his base in Atlanta, he had great difficulty in even looking at the houses in Atlanta, much less choosing one, because of his lifelong love of Louisville and the comfort and beauty of our home as we had known it together. But our home was up for sale, and we had to move somewhere. My first trip with the 24-foot U-Haul truck saw me lost in the mountains of northern Georgia. Many curves and turns later, I found our new home in the countryside around Lake Lanier. It was midnight when I saw the house for the first time. Don and Carla had picked it out, and I immediately began searching in the darkness for each window and doorway to perform the ritual of cleansing with salt and blessed water. It was an inauspicious beginning to an unusual experience there. A small beginning is made near the end of this session to query again on the archetypical mind, and Ra's comment at the end of this session is a key part of the mystery of Don's illness and his death. Carla. By the time Don accepted the house we moved into, he was in a settled state of disorientation, something unknown before this time. I, too, was quite at low ebb, dimly grasping what I needed to be exquisitely correct in all ethical dealings and willing to go to almost any lengths to remain in the light. I did manage to keep the anger and vast irritation I felt with our landlord out of my actual dealings with him. We packed up the kiddies and Don flew us down to Atlanta. Friends drove our cars down. Another friend drove the second rental van, and we piled into a huge and glamorous, and decidedly non-winterized, lakefront house in Cumming, Georgia. As if warning us that this trip was going to be dicey, Jim's first attempt to take the van to Georgia found him fetched up, barely 60 miles from Louisville, with a broken truck. We disregarded this event and pressed on. The whole 5 months that we were there was like a sitcom, overlaid with bizarre situations. Cumming was the county seat of Forsyth County, a place notorious for its prejudice against any race but Caucasian. On a Saturday, one could drive through the little town and see Ku Klux Klan members in regalia, except for their head masks and hats, handing out brochures at the stoplights. Grandmothers, children, all ages and both sexes wore these sad little costumes and waved racial hatred around as though it were cotton candy. I had planned to join the Robert Shaw Chorale, but when I sang my piece, there was a misunderstanding, and the judges thought I had sung a wrong note. So I did not get accepted, something I had not even thought of. I had been singing all my life, and I was a competent chorus member. But I was out. Instead, needing to sing, I found a little group in the Cumming area, and plodded along while I was there with Irish folk songs and the like. Fun to sing, but not the marvelous prayer experience I had always found classical sacred choral singing to offer. I planned to sing on Sundays at the cathedral there, St. Philip's, and had made every arrangement to do so. But they would not let me start singing until after Christmas, a practice the church had been forced to adopt after people tried to drop in for Christmas and not sing the rest of the year. Meanwhile, I found a mission church 5 minutes from our house which had no choir whatever. So I stayed in tiny All Saints Mission and sang the old Anglican hymns during Eucharist. Every expectation was baffled. Nothing worked out as envisioned. The worst of it was that Don had more, not less, to do in order to arrive at work. He had to run the whole gamut of paralyzing traffic from far north of Atlanta to the south of it, where the airport was. And the weather seemed fated to make things harder. It was extremely cold in Georgia that winter, and when icing conditions were there, as was the case several times, there was absolutely no way to drive anywhere. I can remember Don having to stay in a motel he managed to slide into the parking lot of, unable to reach either home or work. Christmas Eve found me singing 2 services at All Saints while Jim and Don bailed water from burst pipes. By the time the New Year came, the wet carpets had begun to become moldy, and both Don and I were allergic to mold and mildew. As luxurious as the house was for fun on the lake in summer, it was nothing short of a disaster as far as winter living went. I got ulcers on my toes because they were so cold. The floor was never warmer than 50 degrees, ever. Since all this was wrong with the house, we immediately began looking again for another house, both in Atlanta and back in Louisville. We never had one settled day in Georgia, and, pretty as the state was, I cannot say I would wish to be there again. Until Don found the house we now live in March, we were in a constant restless perch, having no real order to things. Our belongings remained boxed, our feelings fragile. I was the one who dealt with the new landlord, which was not a picnic. Don was very insistent that we move immediately for the whole time there, so even though we did stay in that one place for 5 months, the landlord and I had to talk at least weekly so that he could be apprised of our latest plans, none of which worked out. Finally, in March, he asked us to leave so that his family could use the house themselves that summer. It was at that juncture that Don flew to Louisville by himself over a weekend, found this lovely and venerable old bungalow in which we still live, and agreed to buy it. Buying a house was something Don had always felt was unwise for himself to do, and as soon as he had done it, he began to regret it. For Jim and me, this was most difficult to bear, as we had unwisely let ourselves hope that we would come to this little exurb and really settle in and just live as we had before. But Don remained convinced that we must move, again, while always turning down any possible place we found to look at. When I found a house $20,000 cheaper, with a duplex design which would give Don and me a full home plus an apartment for Jim, and Don turned that down too, I realized something was really wrong. Things were in a fine pickle. In this atmosphere, it was faintly off balance even to try to pursue the work in questioning about the archetypical mind which we had begun, but persist we did, cleansing the new working room daily and hoping for the day when we could have another session with those of Ra. I remember feelings of great hope and faith welling up within me as this period spent itself, and wonderings about what in the world was happening with Don. None of us knew anything to do except persevere and follow Ra's suggestion to meet all with praise and thanks, or try. Session 105, October 19th, 1983. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. The vital energies of this instrument are in a much more biased state than the previous asking, with the faculties of will and faith having regained their prominent place in this entity's existence and balance. The physical deficit continues. Questioner, I am sorry that we have to ask so many maintenance questions. We seem to be in a confused condition now with respect to our abilities to continue in the direction that we wish to with respect to the archetypical mind. I would like to ask, what caused the symmetrical welts on the instrument's back, and is there anything further that we can do to heal the instrument and her condition, including these welts? Ra, I am Ra. The welting is a symptom of that which has been a prolonged psychic greeting. The opportunity for this entity to experience massive allergic reaction from streptococcal and staphylococcal viruses has been offered in hopes that this entity would wish to leave the incarnation. The previous occurrence of this state of the mind complex, which occurred upon, in your time numbering system, the 9th month, the 12th day of your present planetary solar revolution, caught your 5th density companion unprepared. The entity is now prepared. There have been 2 instances wherein this entity could have started the reaction since the first opportunity was missed. Firstly, the opportunity to separate self from other self in connection with the choosing of a house. Secondly, the possible vision of self separated from other self in regard to the dissolving of mundane bonds concerning the leaving of this dwelling. Both opportunities were met by this entity with a refusal to separate self from other self, with further work also upon the indigo ray level concerning the avoidance of martyrdom while maintaining unity and love. Thusly, this instrument has had its immunal defenses breached and its lymphatic system involved in the invasion of these viri. You may see some merit in a purging of the instrument's yellow ray chemical body in order to more quickly aid the weakened body complex in its attempt to remove these substances. Techniques include therapeutic enemas or colonics, the sauna once or twice in a day, and the use of vigorous rubbing of the integument for the period of approximately 7 of your diurnal periods. We speak not of diet, not because it might not aid, but because this entity ingests small quantities of any substance and is already avoiding certain substances, notably fresh milk and oil. Questioner: is there any particular place that the integument should be vigorously rubbed? Ra: I am Ra. No. Questioner: could you please tell me what caused Jim's kidney problem to return and what can be done to heal it? Ra: I am Ra. The entity, Jim, determined that it would cleanse itself and thus would spend time-space and space-time in pursuit and contemplation of perfection. The dedication to this working was intensified until the mind-body-spirit complex rang in harmony with this intention. The entity did not grasp the literal way in which metaphysical intentions are translated by the body complex of one working in utter unity of purpose. The entity began the period of prayer, fasting, penitence, and rejoicing. The body complex, which was not yet fully recovered from the nephrotic syndrome, began to systematically cleanse each organ, sending all the detritus that was not perfect through kidneys, which were not given enough liquid to dilute the toxins being released. The toxins stayed with the body complex and reactivated a purely physical illness. There is no metaphysical portion in this relapse. The healing is taking place in manifestation of an affirmation of body complex health, which, barring untoward circumstance, shall be completely efficacious. Questioner: is any consideration of the appropriateness of the house at Lake Lanier, which we intend to move to, or special preparation, other than that planned, advisable? Ra: I am Ra. We believe you have queried obliquely. Please re-query. Questioner: we plan to cleanse the property at the Lake Lanier location using the techniques prescribed by Ra having to do with using the salt for 36 hours, etc. I would like to know if this is sufficient or if there is any salient problem with respect to moving to that house that Ra could advise upon at this time, please. Ra: I am Ra. The cleansing of the dwelling of which you speak need be only 3 nights and 2 days. The dwelling is benign. The techniques are acceptable. We find 3 areas in which use of garlic as previously described would be beneficial. Firstly, the bunk bedroom, below the top sleeping pallet. Secondly, the exterior of the dwelling facing the road and centering about the small rocks approximately 2/3 of the length of the dwelling from the driveway side. Thirdly, there is the matter of the boathouse. We suggest weekly cleansings of that area with garlic, the cut onions, and the walking of a light-filled perimeter. The garlic and onion, renewed weekly, should remain permanently hung, suspended from string or wire between workings. Questioner: just so that I don't make a mistake in interpreting your directions with respect to the second area outside the house, could you give me a distance and magnetic compass heading from the exact center of the dwelling to that position? Ra: I am Ra. We may only be approximate, but would suggest a distance of 37 feet, a magnetic heading of 84 to 92 degrees. Questioner: I know that it is unimportant for our purposes, and from the philosophical point of view, I don't want to do anything to upset the law of confusion, so don't feel that it is necessary to answer this, but I was wondering what condition created the necessity for such continual cleansing of the boathouse. Ra: I am Ra. The intent is to create a perimeter within which the apiary denizens will not find it necessary to sting, and indeed will not find it promising to inhabit. Questioner: are you speaking of bees or wasps or creatures of that type? Ra: I am Ra. That is so. Questioner: are Jim's plans and ritual for the deconsecrating of this dwelling sufficient, or should something be added or changed? Ra: I am Ra. No change is necessary. The points necessary to be included in consecration or deconsecration of the place are covered. We may suggest that each second density woody plant which you have invested during your tenancy within this dwelling be thanked and blessed. Questioner: is there any other suggestion that Ra could make with respect to any part of this move that is planned, and will we have any problems at all in contacting Ra in the new dwelling, and if so, will Ra tell us about those and what we could do to alleviate any problems in contacting Ra in the new dwelling? Ra: I am Ra. We weigh this answer carefully, for it comes close to abrogation of free will, but find the proximity acceptable due to this instrument's determination to be of service to the one infinite Creator, regardless of personal circumstances. Any physical aid upon the part of the instrument in the packing and unpacking will activate those allergic reactions lying dormant for the most part at this time. This entity is allergic to those items which are unavoidable in transitions within your third density illusion, that is, dust, mildew, etc. The one known as Bob will be of aid in this regard. The scribe should take care also to imbibe a doubled quantity of liquids in order that any allergically caused toxins may be flushed from the body complex. There is no difficulty in resuming contact through this tuned instrument with the social memory complex, Ra, in the chosen dwelling, or, indeed, in any place whatsoever once physical and metaphysical cleansing has been accomplished. Questioner: I have come to the conclusion that the meaning of the hawk that we had about a year ago when we started to move the first time had to do with the non-benign nature of the house, in the metaphysical sense, which I had picked. If it would not interfere with the law of confusion, I think that it would be philosophically interesting to know if I am correct with respect to that. Ra: I am Ra. What bird comes to affirm for Ra? What bird would be chosen to warn? We ask the questioner to ponder these queries. Questioner: we have been, as you might say, experimentally determining a lot of things about the body, the next portion of the tarot, and have been experiencing some of the feedback effects, you might say, between the mind and the body. From everything that we have done so far with respect to these effects, the great value of the third density yellow ray body at this time is as a device that feeds back catalyst to create the polarization, I would say. I would ask Ra if initially when they were designed for third density experience, the mind-body spirits, not the mind-body-spirit complexes, had as the major use of the yellow ray body the feeding back of catalyst, and if not, what was the purpose of the yellow ray body? Ra: I am Ra. The description which began your query is suitable for the function of the mind-body-spirit or the mind-body-spirit complex. The position in creation of physical manifestation changed not one whit when the veil of forgetting was dropped. Questioner: then the yellow ray body, from the very beginning, was designed as what Ra has called an athanor for the mind, a device to accelerate the evolution of the mind. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. It is perhaps more accurate to note that the yellow ray physical vehicle is a necessity without which the mind-body-spirit complex cannot pursue evolution at any pace. Questioner: then you are saying that the evolution of that portion of the individual that is not yellow ray is not possible without the clothing at intervals in the yellow ray body. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. No. Questioner: would you clear up my thinking on that? I didn't quite understand your statement. Ra: I am Ra. Each mind-body-spirit or mind-body-spirit complex has an existence simultaneous with that of creation. It is not dependent upon any physical vehicle. However, in order to evolve, change, learn, and manifest the Creator, the physical vehicles appropriate to each density are necessary. Your query implied that physical vehicles accelerated growth. The more accurate description is that they permit growth. Questioner: as an example, I would like to take the distortion of a disease or bodily malfunction prior to the veil and compare it to that after the veil. Let us assume that the conditions that Jim experienced with respect to his kidney malfunction had been an experience that occurred prior to the veil. Would this experience have occurred prior to the veil? Would it have been different? And if so, how? Ra: I am Ra. The anger of separation is impossible without the veil. The lack of awareness of the body's need for liquid is unlikely without the veil. The decision to contemplate perfection and discipline is quite improbable without the veil. Questioner: I would like to examine a sample, shall we say, bodily distortion prior to the veil and how it would affect the mind. Could Ra give an example of that, please? Ra: I am Ra. This general area has been covered. We shall recapitulate here. The patterns of illness, diseases, and death are a benignant domain within the plane of incarnational experience. As such, some healing would occur by decision of mind, body, spirits, and incarnations were experienced with the normal ending of illness to death, accepted as such since without the veil it is clear that the mind, body, spirit continues. Thusly, the experiences, both good and bad, or joyful and sad, of the mind, body, spirit before veiling would be pale, without vibrancy, or the keen edge of interest that such brings in the post-veiling mind, body, spirit complex. Questioner: at the end of an incarnation, before veiling, did the entity appear physically to have aged like entities at the end of their incarnation in our present illusion? Did the significator look like that? Ra: I am Ra. The significator of mind, body, or spirit is a portion of the archetypical mind and looks as each envisions such to appear. The body of mind, body, spirits before veiling showed all the signs of aging, which acquaint you now with the process leading to the removal from third density incarnation of the mind, body, spirit complex. It is well to recall that the difference betwixt mind, body, spirits, and mind, body, spirit complexes is a forgetting within the deeper mind. Physical appearances and surface and instinctual activities are much the same. Questioner: then I was wondering what was the root reason for the change in appearance that we see as the aging process. I'm trying to uncover the basic philosophical premise here, but I may be shooting in the dark and not questioning on it correctly. I'm trying to get at the reason behind the design in this change in appearance, and when it seems to me that it would be just as possible for the mind-body-spirit or mind-body-spirit complex to look the same throughout an incarnation. Could Ra explain the reason for the change? Ra: I am Ra. when the discipline of the personality has led the mind-body-spirit complex into the fifth and especially the sixth level of study, it is no longer necessary to build destruction of the physical vehicle into its design, for the spirit complex is so experienced as a shuttle that it is aware when the appropriate degree of intensity of learning and increment of lesson have been achieved. Within third density, not to build into the physical vehicle its ending would be counterproductive to the mind-body-spirit complexes therein residing, for within the illusion, it seems more lovely to be within the illusion than to drop the garment which has carried the mind-body-spirit complex and move on. Questioner: I see, then, that it is, shall we say, when an individual reaches a very old age, it becomes apparent to him in third density that he is worn out. Therefore, he is not attached to this vehicle as firmly as he would be with a good-looking, well-functioning one. After the veil, the body is definitely an athanor for the mind. Prior to the veiling, did the body serve as an athanor for the mind at all? Ra: I am Ra. Yes. You may ask one more full query. Questioner: I believe that I should ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact, since in the last session I was not able to get that question in. Ra: I am Ra. We find the weariness of the group well balanced by its harmony. That weariness shall continue in any future circumstance during your incarnations. Therefore, look you to your love and thanksgiving for each other, and join always in fellowship, correcting each broken strand of that affection with patience, comfort, and quietness. We find all meticulously observed in the alignments and give you these words only as reminder. All that can be done for the instrument seems done with a whole heart, and the instrument itself is working in the indigo ray with perseverance. We have previously mentioned some temporary measures for the instrument. If these are adopted, additional liquids shall be imbibed by the instrument and by the questioner, whose bond with the instrument is such that each difficulty for one is the same in sympathy for the other. I am Ra. I leave you rejoicing merrily in the love and the light, the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator, Adonai.